Hi, welcome to the Linux channel. I do get this type of queries quite often, and it's not surprising. Even last night, I got a question by a viewer in WhatsApp. Again, it's a question about the ecosystem of Windows versus Linux. So this is a sort of a follow-up after I have done a video about developers or programming in Windows and Linux. So I thought I can make it again unbiased, so that I'm not either supporting Windows or Linux. Just because the channel name is Linux channel, I don't want to just support Linux alone. I just want to share something which kind of makes it very clear in case if you are very new or else you are unable to understand open source ecosystem versus something quite you are well used to, like a Windows platform, and now if you are willing to migrate towards Linux and you are finding a lot of challenges and you are thinking that something I can do quite easily in Windows, like games or whatever it is, I am not able to get equivalent sort of options with Linux. See, one thing is you should note each of these is a complete different operating system, so obviously you will have a different platform specific features, and it is when you think about Windows applications, they are platform dependent applications, of course. So you can't take these applications and run it on a smartphone, or you can't take these applications and run it on a Linux system as well. Although Linux have this Wine Windows emulator, to an extent you can run some platform independent Windows applications, but you can't just like that run any applications. So to make it cut short, I can tell one thing is, if you consider Windows is a restaurant food line, it is a cuisine or a dish done by someone else, and you just have to go order it and have it, and you don't have any options to customize it. At the max you may put some few condiments, or you may sprinkle some pepper, salt, whatever it is, but other than that you don't have any control on that overall dish. Okay, you just order it and then you get it, whether it is door delivered or you go to the restaurant and have it. So Windows is like that. Okay, but when it comes to Linux, Linux is a home cooked food, you can imagine, and it's a food which is cooked by your mother or father or your sister or your wife or something like that. We can consider when you are using Ubuntu or Fedora or something like the CentOS, whatever it is, when you are using some distribution, it's a food cooked by somebody else. And in case if you don't like this food, okay, you can cook by yourself. You have all the sources, you can add anything else you want, what Ubuntu doesn't provide or Fedora doesn't provide. You can make it a custom distribution and you can do it. Of course it needs some learning curve and it is not a cup of tea for everyone. Okay, but having this type of ecosystem, it allows you to build your own distribution. So which is what you can self build your own distribution, you can cook your own distribution, you can make it lightweight than what Ubuntu offers, or Fedora, CentOS, whatever it offers. To start with, you can completely get away with the install whatever the platform, like we have in Debian we have dpkg and apt-get and stuff like that, versus in Fedora world we have DNF and before that yum and other stuff. So you can even exclude these things and you can custom build, and you have also other embedded platforms like Buildroot, Yocto and OpenWRT and stuff like that. So either you can use some option like that and you can simplify your work, and if you don't like anything, you can self build everything from scratch, and it's up to you to explore. Having said that, I'm not an expert, nor I'm interested in that that part of the stuff, but I have done custom cooking of ISOs for my clients, for Traffic Squeezer or Toffee, whatever it is. Even the recent Toffee Mocha I have released as a custom ISO. But having said that, I'm not a person who is much willing to get into everything and then completely self-cook the entire distribution. Have done, in my case, I have taken a Debian, and through Debian I have built a custom ISO. But this is what it is. So if you don't like your mother's food or wife's food either, and if you have some complaints, you can self-cook. And last but not least, see, here is the catch. If you think about Windows, if it has some type of backdoors, if they are monitoring you, if they are if they are monitoring your any activities, if you feel it is not safe, if you feel it has some type of backdoor where it is reporting your stuff to Microsoft or any such stuff, what happens is you don't have any control over there. Okay, so it's a privacy concern if you think about these aspects. And same thing happens if you use Android or iOS, Apple iOS or anything. They can take your data, and then it's a kind of a privacy issue. We never know what data they collect, we never know what they retain, we never know how they get shared across any government agencies or marketing agencies. So this is an issue. This is going to be an issue with the Microsoft Windows also. We can't micromanage and control how much data is being collected by them and what is going out of your, what is the egress of your device to the external world. Okay, having said that, I'm not saying what extent apps do that. That again depends on any trust you put in an app. Assume you are installing some Adobe Premiere or something like that. We never know what they collect actually, so that is a thing apart. But other than that, as an operating system itself, it can do anything because it's a commercial operating system spin. In the case of Linux, same thing can happen. Again, this is a question I got from somebody else as well, apart from yesterday's viewer. It's a question, it can occur in Linux as well, and some may argue Android is Linux and it is also doing. You should understand, Android is not Linux as it is. Android uses Linux kernel, but you have an entire Android operating system abstracted this Linux kernel. So it is hijacking the entire Linux kernel and it is having its own mind. Okay, so that is what Android is. Okay, so same way, if you think about traditional Linux distributions which you can install on x86 systems, they can also do that. If you have Ubuntu, it can also do something like that. Let's assume. The thing is, it has that source code, it is a visible stuff. Hundreds of people, millions of people can have a look of that build stuff, whatever Ubuntu have done, the repositories, whatever it is, and through that they will come to know that if such a backdoor exists. So it is quite easy. Okay, they can't hide it. It's a open source, they can't hide it. Again I'm saying if you don't like this, if you don't like your home cooked food by somebody else, like your mom, dad, sister, brother, or your wife, if you don't like your home cooked food cooked by someone else, you can take a step further and you can cook your food by yourself. You can customize whatever you want. You can put extra cheese, you can put extra oil or reduce the oil, you can put any condiments, you can put any vegetables of your choice, meat of your choice, you can customize it. Okay, so this is what. So when you do such amount of control and if you cook a custom distribution like that, you have visibility in every aspect. You know that this does this, this does this, and there is no option of having any sort of backdoors. Okay, so this is what it is. So with the open source, this is the primary feature you get. One is you have extreme control. As I said in the developer video, if you are working in Windows environment, you get a control and you get always an abstraction. And this abstraction is provided by Microsoft, obviously. And in the case of Linux, it doesn't gives you any sort of limit. You can go any level down. If you are working only in user space, you get abstraction with the system calls and library APIs. Only using that APIs you have to build your applications. But if you are working in kernel stuff, then you can use kernel provided APIs. If you don't like those APIs, you can write your own backend APIs, you can write your own platform APIs and stuff like that. If you don't like any feature, you can take it out, customize and stuff. So like I say, this provides the complete visibility and this reduces any type of backdoors. This also reduces any type of security issues because let's suppose you use Microsoft Windows or iOS or even Android. There is no guarantee that they can have any bugs which is unnoticed, let's ignore Android because it is again fairly open source. Let's assume iOS or Windows. It may have any bugs, it may have any unknown bugs. Okay, it can have any security holes, especially. I'm not saying bugs which can lead to crash, I'm saying bugs which can lead to security security holes. Okay, so if you have such issues, the company staff must have not seen it, and it may be unnoticed for a couple of years or even a decade, and then finally someone may see, or somebody must have explored and taken advantage of by some hacker, and then they come to know about that security issue, and then they put a patch to prevent that happening in the future. Okay, so this is something happens quite often in a commercial provided operating system, because it is done by a company with limited amount of people. But when you think about something like Linux ecosystem, even if you don't cook yourself, if you are using Ubuntu, Fedora or something, most probably they are going to take a kernel which is seen by millions of developers. Obviously, in case if it has any security holes, it will get fixed within just a week or just 2 days. Okay, this swiftness of addressing things cannot happen in a corporate level. Okay, even Microsoft, let's assume, have around 40,000 employees across the world, or even it has 60,000 employees across the world. It is nowhere we can compare the quantity of people who can work over there effectively in that kernel parts when you compare with the ecosystem like Linux or FreeBSD or anything like that. Okay, so you have great visibility here, and also in case it has any security issues, it will be addressed as early as possible because of the visibility. Okay, someone will volunteer, someone will address it. Okay, so you will have some sense of greater control over those aspects. Okay, this is not something possible with any type of commercial operating system. So let it be Windows, let it be iOS, or let it be any commercial operating system, and that includes even Android as well, because again, to an extent, Android have their own abstraction, and through that abstraction, the Android apps, whatever it is, it's all running within that abstraction, and it depends. That layer can have any security holes, although Linux kernel, which has underneath, is highly secure, and it is a strict monolithic platform. But Android makes it to appear more like a microkernel-ish look and feel, or if not a microkernel, it will look like a hybrid kernel like sort of a look and feel. Last but not least, there are also people who kind of thinks somebody is enforcing you to use a particular platform or an operating system or something like that. When it comes to Windows or whether I use Linux, see, don't compare with the face value. As I said earlier, don't compare with some GUI features it offers versus GUI features it offers. Over a long run, Linux is more adapted to be used in much other mission critical applications. Let it be supercomputers, so let it be medical research, let it be in stock markets, let it be in space. Okay, NASA uses them for space probes and other space missions. Let it be our data center servers. So as we know, even now Microsoft itself uses Linux servers in their cloud platform. So it's completely a dumb discussion why Linux is not evolved as a desktop operating system and stuff. If you ask me, I'm using as you know, I use always a Linux system. I don't have any Windows installed. Let it be a desktop, laptop, or even a VM also I don't have. I may get a license in future for some few applications, or in terms of checking any interoperability and stuff like that. I'm not saying that I don't ever touch Windows. I'm saying there is no need for me. After I shifted to Linux ecosystem, I shifted during 2009 when I started my firm. I thought let me not use any more Windows system, because when I was in Akamai or even Tata Elxsi, whatever, the desktop OS is Windows system. So naturally, when you compose any mails, when you talk to your HR, when you do any office stuff, you use Microsoft Office, and then the Microsoft Windows desktop, and within the desktop you may work on other Linux applications through Citrix access, whatever it is. So that is something different. But after I did this, after that I never touched any Windows system. So my last Windows system is my old Asus Aspire laptop, which had Windows Vista, and it is horrible experience because it's a single core solo processor, Intel solo processor, and it is its performance is pathetic. And you put any Windows Vista, or even let's assume I downgrade it to Windows XP or something like that, it is it gives a pathetic performance. So that's what is factory installed in that laptop, but later I have removed and I have installed with Ubuntu. After that I never almost touched any Windows system, because I see, for me, being expert, being a techie, being a systems guy, for me it is fine. But if you are a doctor, if you are some constructional engineer or architect or something like that, you may find it little difficult. And if you ask me, my wife, she is very comfortable with the Linux system. Before marriage she had used Windows systems, but after marriage, after using Linux system, hardly she does, she is not a techie, hardly she does browsing, and then she does some work for her YouTube channel, and she writes some documents that again she uses LibreOffice, or she uses Google Drive, and apart from that she uses text editors. That's all it is. So for this work you can very well use Linux system, and she's good to go. She never worked anymore after that in any Windows system. Okay, so it is very stable. She boots it, just she have an SSD in her laptop versus my systems. She boots in just 2 seconds, and then she uses her stuff, and she either puts in suspend mode, or else she completely shuts down, and it is incredibly faster, and it doesn't do any more when you shut down, Windows does this updates and all. It doesn't do anything like that. And when she is working on some project, I do remotely OS upgrades and stuff like that from logging from here, and I upgrade her laptop. So it is quite good. She doesn't know that I do all this backend even maintenance, and sometimes I use her laptop itself as a test system whenever I need some other external test systems besides my bunch of VMs actually. So this is what it all depends on what type of use case you have. You have a very severe dependency on any applications, third party applications, like Photoshop, which runs in Windows, or something else which runs in Windows. Of course you need to use Windows platform. There is no question about it. It's just the application runs in that platform, so you need to use that platform, as simple as that. Okay, let's suppose you have an app, it only runs in Android, or let's assume they have released only for iPhone, iOS. You need to use it only on iPhone, because that's what they have done, that app, and they have released, and you are forced to use that particular ecosystem. So same way, if you are dependent on any desktop applications, then you need to stick with Windows. But for me, in my home, I don't have any dependency. Let it be my work. Okay, I do extensively graphic processing and other stuff. Let it be banners for these videos, or let it be video editing, sound editing, whatever it is, let it be that. Apart from my programming stuff, I can do very well in a full-fledged Linux system. And one thing I learned is the entire Jurassic Park movie itself, the CGI rendering is done in Linux systems, not any Windows system. So I have some belief in Linux systems rather than Windows system when it comes to productivity, because you get raw CPU performance, raw hardware performance guaranteed, versus that uncertainty what you get often with Windows. Even you throw any amount of the configuration, still you find sometimes it is lagging in performance. Suddenly it uses more RAM, something happens, and then blue screen and this and that. So I feel I can't use something like that in a sustained manner. Okay, so if you turn on the PC, I generally turn on the PC now the time is around 10 or 9:30, something like that. I shut down the PC by around midnight, 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock, or whatever it is. So for me, just have to work in the same speed, and I can't see that the system is degrading because I have booted long time back. So this I often see with the Windows machines when I was having Windows PC or Windows laptops when I was working in a company. I no longer see that issue in a Linux ecosystem. So I have to use the ecosystem for this kind of a specific use case. I can't compromise on performance. At the same time, the resources, whatever is provided, I feel it is more than enough for the OS to run. And in case if it is lagging performance due to less RAM or something, I can upgrade, it's fine. But in Windows, we can't guarantee, even after you upgrade, it may work, it may not work, it may have some other issue. I can't take that. So as far as my use case is considered, I'm a professional. Of course I can do certain things. Of course I can even self compile and self build, and I can cook food. Okay, in real world I can cook myself. Sometimes I do complain my wife's food or else my mother's food. I can even self cook, and I feel very much accomplished doing self cooking rather than eating someone's food. At the same time, I also appreciate someone's cooked food also, and as well as restaurant food. But always I can't eat them, because as you know, if you eat always on restaurant food, if you thrive in restaurant food, one or other day you are going to get terribly sick, and the chances of you getting sick that way doesn't happen if you self cook, or let it be a food cooked by your relative at home, because you have all the control of that food. You can customize whichever way you want. Someone is diabetic, someone is hypertensive, you can customize the food, and then you can do whatever the way you want or your family wants. This doesn't happen with restaurant cooked food. Okay, they assume they have to put so and so ingredients to make it tasty, palatable, and also it has that market value. So for that they have to put some color, they have to put certain ingredients. Okay, may not suit you, you may be allergic or something like that, so you have to deal with that. Okay, so there is no question about comparing Windows versus Linux. It all depends on your specific use case. In my use case, even as a desktop system, it is highly stable, reliable, and I'm good to go with that. But it again depends in your situation. It depends whether it may be feasible, not feasible, or partly feasible. You need to hop on between Windows and Linux. Rather than doing that, you can use Windows system itself. Okay, so hope this addresses this confusion once for all. If you have anything to discuss, be in touch via mail. Thanks a lot for joining me. Stay tuned. Have a nice day. Bye bye.